They say monsters are just myths. But what if the legends were true, and some are still out there, waiting in the shadows? Today we'll uncover 5 creatures you might pray you never meet. Imagine you're sailing the ship in the 1700s. The weather is perfect, a nice wind is blowing, and then you see a horde of fish swimming just below the surface. You think it's a jackpot, as this will solve the food shortage problem on the ship. But some of the oldest sailors on your ship are terrified. When you ask them what's wrong, they simply tell you to start praying because only God can save this ship now. Suddenly, the water beneath your ship goes black. Before you can shout for warning, a wall of tentacles the size of a tall tree slams your deck, sinking your ship and killing everyone in the process. Meet the Kraken. According to the ancient Scandinavian sagas, a Kraken was huge, to the point that it could be mistaken for an island. Many believe that they are the ancestor of the squids. Kraken has been the subject of sailors' superstition since the 1700s, when multiple authors have described the features of it, though no one can seemingly agree on what it looks like, with many different accounts floating around. According to the scientists, it is just a myth and is born out of people exaggerating the giant squid, which can also attack ships. However, only 5% of the ocean has been explored, so scientists cannot completely deny the existence of it. In 2006, a group of researchers claimed that they had seen the Kraken. While it was dismissed as a sighting of a giant squid, many of them still insist that it was a Kraken. So the next time you encounter a little turbulence on the ship, take a glance overboard just to be safe. But that's not the only ancient terror to fear beneath the surface. Our next creature could kill with just a glance. The medieval period was one of the strangest times in human history, from witch trials and deadly plagues to dragons and the use of magic. According to some ancient texts, the medieval period was basically a Game of Thrones season. But if the medieval bestiaries had a nightmare fuel award, it would go to the Basilisk. The Basilisk is a legendary reptile that was also the Serpent King. It is so toxic that its mere breath could wither plants and crack stones, and its glare so deadly that it can petrify any person. What makes the Basilisk terrifying isn't just its mythical powers, but how close it sometimes brushes with reality. Many believe that this mythical creature was inspired by the combination of the king cobra and the spitting cobra. King cobra's bite can kill anyone in mere seconds, and the spitting cobra can spit venom and generally aims for the eyes. So, is Basilisk a myth? In the 1500s, people actually claimed to find basilisks in the dark basements and the wells. Some cities, including Warsaw, once banned digging in certain areas, fearing that disturbing ancient wells might unleash the basilisk. People claim that to counter a basilisk, you must use mirrors to reflect its deadly stare. So if you wander around through an abandoned ruin and the birds fall silent, the air feels heavy, and something's moving low in the shadows, don't look, just run, and pray to God that your phone camera counts as a mirror. And while the basilisk ruled the land, something far more dangerous once hunted the forests of North America. Game of Thrones fans, brace yourselves because the dire wolf wasn't just a Stark family mascot. The dire wolf, which is Latin for fearsome dog, was real, massive, and very much the apex predator of its time. Living across North America during the Ice Age, dire wolves were heavier, stronger, and possibly more aggressive than today's grey wolves. The scientists discovered something about the dire wolves in 2021 that shocked everyone. They found that dire wolves weren't just big wolves. They weren't wolves at all. Their genetics were so distinct that they couldn't breed with any other canine species, which is a big thing because this means that it was an entirely different kind of ancient predator that evolved in isolation. Dire wolves officially went extinct around 10,000 years ago, presumably because they couldn't adapt to the climate changes that were happening around them. But there have been sightings of dire wolves in the modern era, the most famous being the 1994 Beast of Seven Chutes incident in Quebec, where a man was taking a photo of a waterfall, but he seemed to capture an unidentified creature, which matches the description of the dire wolves. Scientists successfully sequenced dire wolf DNA, and some now hope to revive its traits through advanced genetic research. So if you hear a low, ancient howl that freezes the blood in your veins while hiking, you might not be alone. Deep beneath the earth, explorers have reported massive skulls, grinning, jagged, with a single gaping hole in the forehead. But some say the real monsters still roam. Picture this. You're going on an adventure trip with your friends in a cave. You're deeply exploring it, and at some point, you start to notice something strange about the cave. You have a strange feeling as if you're being watched at all times, and then you see it, a massive skull that is half buried in limestone, grinning with jagged teeth. But that's not what stops your breath. It's the single, gaping hole in the middle of its forehead. You're not just looking at bones, you're looking at a warning. The Cyclops is something that has come straight out of the Greek theatre, and they are mostly described as a one-eyed giant monster who feasts on humans and animals alike. The first mention of Cyclops was in the Greek literature The Odyssey by Homer. In it, Odysseus was trapped by a Cyclops in the cave of Polyphemus, but barely managed to survive by blinding the Cyclops' one eye, and eventually managed to defeat it. The Greek islanders claim to have found the skulls of the Cyclops, which were later identified as being of an elephant. However, there have been some strange sightings related to the Cyclops. In Afghanistan, a soldier claimed that they had seen a one-eyed 12-foot monster. The creature supposedly let out a howl that triggered nausea and disorientation in the team. There is no official word on this incident, but the ex-soldier has talked about his story very openly. Another incident is when a bunch of cavers stumbled upon a massive bipedal shadow crouched behind a stone slab. They mentioned that it had one enormous eye reflecting the beam like a cat's. The place is now sealed off for safety reasons. But either way, if you ever see a Cyclops, pray to God that your phone torch is good enough to blind it and let you escape. Otherwise, you'll end up as dinner for the one-eyed beast. But not all of these mythical creatures are so dangerous. Some are far more alluring and far more deceptive. Throughout history, sailors have spoken of one chilling encounter, the mermaid. Consider this. While scuba diving, you and your friends come across a strange but familiar creature. As you move closer, you finally see one of the most beautiful Disney creatures, a mermaid. But there is something off. These mermaids don't seem friendly. In fact, as you try to escape back to the surface, you realize that you're no match for them. And as you fight to escape, you realize they are no fairy tale creatures, and they are far from alone beneath the waves. At this point, it's just an open truth that mermaids did exist. A lot of sailors, from the medieval to modern era, claim to have seen a mermaid. In the ancient era, mermaids were a death warning to the sailors. They are known to be predators who hunt down fish, sharks, and most of all, humans. In Slavic folklore, the mermaids were once women who were murdered by the sailors, and now they are cursed by the sea to bring down all the living. The first official sighting of the mermaids comes from the famous Christopher Columbus. He described them as having masculine faces and scaly reptilian bodies. Columbus insisted they were watching the ship and were neither startled nor swimming away. Some modern divers also claim to hear voices in the ocean, but they couldn't find anyone there. And if you hear whispers in the dark sea, maybe it's not just your imagination. Would you dare dive deep enough to find out? And that wraps up another adventure of unknown creatures. But trust me, the next list will reveal even darker legends. You won't want to miss it. So tell me, which of these legends would you risk a road trip for? Drop your pick in the comments, whether it's the screeching mermaid or the one-eyed giant. And if you enjoyed this video, then check out parts 1 and 2, where we uncovered creatures even stranger than these.